Tales Under a Broken Sky. Episode 8. Christabel by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Part 1. 'Tis the middle of the night by the castle clock, and the owls have awakened the crowing cock. To wit, to woo, and hark again the crowing cock, how drowsily it crew. Sir Leoline, the Baron rich, hath a toothless mastiff bitch. From her kennel beneath the rock she maketh answer to the clock. 4 for the quarters, and 12 for the hour. Ever and aye, by shine and shower. 16 short howls, not over loud. Some say she sees my lady's shroud. Is the night chilly and dark? The night is chilly, but not dark. The thin grey cloud is spread on high. It covers, but not hides the sky. The moon is behind and at the full, and yet she looks both small and dull. The night is chill, the cloud is grey. 'Tis a month before the month of May, and the spring comes slowly up this way. The lovely lady, Christabel, whom her father loves so well, what makes her in the woods so late, a furlong from the castle gate? She had dreams all yesternight of her own betrothed knight, and she in the midnight wood will pray for the weal of her lover that's far away. She stole along, she nothing spoke. The sighs she heaved were soft and low, but naught was green upon the oak, but moss and rarest mistletoe. She kneels beneath the huge oak tree, and in silence prayeth she. The lady sprang up suddenly, the lovely lady Christabel. It moaned as near can be, but what it is, she cannot tell. On the other side, it seems to be of the huge, broad-breasted, old oak tree. The night is chill, the forest bare. Is it the wind that moaneth bleak? There is not wind enough in the air to move away the ringlet curl from the lovely lady's cheek. There is not wind enough to twirl the one red leaf, the last of its clan, that dances as often as dance it can, hanging so light and hanging so high on the topmost twig that looks up at the sky. Hush, beating heart of Christabel. Jesu Maria, shield her well. She folded her arms beneath her cloak and stole to the other side of the oak. What sees she there? There she sees a damsel bright, dressed in a silken robe of white, that shadowy in the moonlight shone, the neck that made the white robe wan. Her stately neck and arms were bare, her blue-veined feet unsandaled were, and wildly glittered here and there the gems entangled in her hair. I guess 'twas frightful there to see a lady so richly clad as she, beautiful exceedingly. Mary Mother, save me now, said Christabel, and who art thou? The lady strange made answer meet, and her voice was faint and sweet. Have pity on my sore distress, I scarce can speak for weariness. Stretch forth thy hand, and have no fear, said Christabel. How camest thou here? And the lady, whose voice was faint and sweet, did thus pursue her answer meet. My sire is of a noble line, and my name is Geraldine. 5 warriors seized me yestermorn, me, even me, a maid forlorn. They choked my cries with force and fright, and tied me on a palfrey white. The palfrey was as fleet as wind, and they rode furiously behind. They spurred amain, their steeds were white, and once we crossed the shade of night. As sure as heaven shall rescue me, I have no thought what men they be. Nor do I know how long it is, for I have lain entranced I wis, since one, the tallest of the 5, took me from the palfrey's back, a weary woman, scarce alive. Some muttered words his comrade spoke. He placed me underneath this oak. He swore they would return with haste. Whither they went, I cannot tell. I thought I heard, some minutes past, sounds as of a castle bell. Stretch forth thy hand, thus ended she, and help a wretched maid to flee. Then Christabel stretched forth her hand, and comforted fair Geraldine. O well, bright dame, may you command the service of Sir Leoline, and gladly our stout chivalry will he send forth, and friends withal, to guide and guard you safe and free, home to your noble father's hall. She rose, and forth with steps they passed, that strove to be, and were not fast. Her gracious stars the lady blessed, and thus spake on sweet Christabel. All our household are at rest, the hall as silent as the cell. Sir Leoline is weak in health, and may not well awakened be. But we will move as if in stealth, and I beseech your courtesy this night to share your couch with me. They crossed a moat, and Christabel took the key that fitted well. A little door she opened straight, all in the middle of the gate. The gate that was ironed within and without, where an army in battle array had marched out. The lady sank, belike through pain, and Christabel, with might and main, lifted her up, a weary weight, over the threshold of the gate. Then the lady rose again, and moved as she were not in pain. So free from danger, free from fear, they crossed the court, right glad they were. And Christabel devoutly cried to the lady by her side, Praise we the Virgin, all divine, who hath rescued thee from thy distress. Alas, alas, said Geraldine, I cannot speak for weariness. So free from danger, free from fear, they crossed the court, right glad they were. Outside her kennel, the mastiff old lay fast asleep in moonshine cold. The mastiff old did not awake, yet she an angry moan did make. And what can ail the mastiff bitch? Never till now she uttered yell beneath the eye of Christabel. Perhaps it is the owlet's scritch, for what can ail the mastiff bitch? They passed a hall that echoes still, pass as lightly as you will. The brands were flat, the brands were dying, amid their own white ashes lying. But when the lady passed, there came a tongue of light, a fit of flame, and Christabel saw the lady's eye, and nothing else saw she thereby, save the boss of the shield of Sir Leoline tall, which hung in a murky old niche in the wall. "O softly tread," said Christabel, "my father seldom sleepeth well." Sweet Christabel her feet doth bear, and jealous of the listening air, they steal their way from stair to stair, now in glimmer, and now in gloom. And now they pass the baron's room, as still as death, with stifled breath. And now have reached her chamber door, and now doth Geraldine press down the rushes of the chamber floor. The moon shines dim in the open air, and not a moonbeam enters here. But they without its light can see the chamber carved so curiously, carved with figures strange and sweet, all made out of the carver's brain, for a lady's chamber meet. The lamp with twofold silver chain is fastened to an angel's feet. The silver lamp burns dead and dim, but Christabel the lamp will trim. She trimmed the lamp and made it bright, and left it swinging to and fro, while Geraldine, in wretched plight, sank down upon the floor below. "O weary lady, Geraldine, I pray you drink this cordial wine. It is a wine of virtuous powers. My mother made it of wild flowers. And will your mother pity me, who am a maiden most forlorn?" Christabel answered, "Woe is me, she died the hour that I was born. I have heard the grey-haired friar tell how on her deathbed she did say that she should hear the castle bell strike 12 upon my wedding day. O mother dear, that thou wert here, I would," said Geraldine, "she were." But soon, with altered voice, said she, "Off, wandering mother, peak and pine, I have powers to bid thee flee. Alas, what ails poor Geraldine? Why stares she with unsettled eye? Can she the bodiless dead espy? And why, with hollow voice, cries she, Off, woman, off, this hour is mine. Though thou her guardian spirit be, off, woman, off, 'tis given to me." Then Christabel knelt by the lady's side, and raised to heaven her eyes so blue. "Alas," said she, "this ghastly ride, dear lady, it hath wildered you." The lady wiped her moist cold brow, and faintly said, "'Tis over now." Again the wildflower wine she drank, her fair large eyes gan glitter bright, and from the floor whereon she sank, the lofty lady stood upright. She was most beautiful to see, like a lady of a far country. And thus the lofty lady spake, "All they who live in the upper sky do love you, holy Christabel, and you love them, and for their sake, and for the good which me befell, even I in my degree will try, fair maiden, to requite you well. But now unrobe yourself, for I must pray, ere yet in bed I lie." Quoth Christabel, "So let it be." And as the lady bade, did she her gentle limbs did she undress, and lay down in her loveliness. But through her brain of weal and woe, so many thoughts moved to and fro, that vain it were her lids to close. So halfway from the bed she rose, and on her elbow did recline, to look at the lady Geraldine. Beneath the lamp the lady bowed, and slowly rolled her eyes around, then drawing in her breath aloud, like one that shuddered, she unbound the cincture from beneath her breast. Her silken robe and inner vest dropped to her feet, and full in view, behold, her bosom and half her side, a sight to dream of, not to tell. Oh, shield her, shield, sweet Christabel. Yet Geraldine nor speaks nor stirs. Ah, what a stricken look was hers. Deep from within, she seems halfway to lift some weight with sick assay, and eyes the maid and seeks delay. Then suddenly, as one defied, collects herself in scorn and pride, and lay down by the maiden's side. And in her arms the maid she took, ah, well a day. And with low voice and doleful look, these words did say, in the touch of this bosom there worketh a spell, which is lord of thy utterance, Christabel. Thou knowest tonight, and wilt know tomorrow, this mark of my shame, this seal of my sorrow. But vainly thou warrest, for this is alone in thy power to declare, that in the dim forest thou heardst a low moaning, and foundst a bright lady surpassingly fair, and didst bring her home with thee in love and in charity, to shield her and shelter her from the damp air. The conclusion to part 1. It was a lovely sight to see the Lady Christabel when she was praying at the old oak tree, amid the jagged shadows of mossy leafless boughs, kneeling in the moonlight to make her gentle vows, her slender palms together pressed, heaving sometimes on her breast, her face resigned to bliss or bale, her face, oh call it fair, not pale, and both blue eyes more bright than clear, each about to have a tear. With open eyes, ah woe is me, asleep and dreaming fearfully, fearfully dreaming, yet I wis, dreaming that alone, which is, oh sorrow and shame, can this be she, the lady who knelt at the old oak tree? And lo, the worker of these harms, that holds the maiden in her arms, seems to slumber still and mild, as a mother with her child. A star had set, a star had risen, O Geraldine, since arms of thine have been the lovely lady's prison. O Geraldine, 1 hour was thine. Thou'st had thy will by tarn and rill. The night birds all that hour were still, but now they are jubilant anew, from cliff and tower to woo, to woo, to woo, to woo, from wood and fell. And see, the Lady Christabel gathers herself from out her trance, her limbs relax, her countenance grows sad and soft, the smooth thin lids close o'er her eyes, and tears she sheds, large tears that leave the lashes bright. And oft the while she seems to smile, as infants at a sudden light. Yeah, she doth smile, and she doth weep, like a youthful hermitess, beauteous in a wilderness, who, praying always, prays in sleep, and if she move unquietly, perchance 'tis but the blood so free comes back and tingles in her feet. No doubt she hath a vision sweet. What if her guardian spirit were? What if she knew her mother near? But this she knows, in joys and woes, that saints will aid if men will call, for the blue sky bends over all. Good evening, and welcome to episode 8 of Tales Under a Broken Sky. I am your host, Keith, and I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. I'm a little bit late with this episode, well, a lot late, between public holidays, school holidays, and a few busy weeks at work. It's been quite difficult to find time to sit down and record, edit, and produce any of these podcasts. This episode, in fact, was also quite a long one to record, and it has taken quite a bit of time in post-production as well, just to kind of get things where I was happy with them. It was so long, in fact, that I decided to split the episode in two, releasing the first and second halves of the poem separately. So, yeah, I got delayed. But things have calmed down again, and I'm getting back on track with everything, so hopefully the release schedule will kind of stay on track from now on. This was the first half of the piece, and I hope to have the second half out shortly, perhaps in the next week or so actually, probably ahead of my usual release schedule. I have a bit of time off work, so it's going to give me a bit of extra time to get some work done on these. I'm going to keep the discussion short for this episode. I have some further thoughts and musings, but they're more related to the whole rather than the individual parts of the poem. That said, there are a few things that I want to mention about the first half. I'm entranced by the uneasy, uncertain atmosphere created here by Coleridge. From the eerie atmosphere in the forest to the subtle hints that not all is right as they journey towards the keep, to the creeping influence of Geraldine over Christabel, and the tension slowly building over the course of part 1 before reaching a peak in the final scene. The imagery used, particularly in the first half of this poem, especially in the forest, is beautiful. Coleridge builds up the nighttime atmosphere, placing the narrative in the wild, close enough to the keep that the sounds there intrude on the background. Once we enter inside, though, the atmosphere feels much more claustrophobic, moving to halls lit by torches and hints of shadows and dark spaces, adding to the sense of secrecy and stealth as they make their way through the building. Worth noting as well is the scene in Christabel's chambers, where Geraldine appears to argue with a spirit when Christabel mentions her mother. It brings about a desolate sense of the supernatural, a feeling I find in many of the classic works of horror. Here I'm thinking of Harker when he was a guest in Castle Dracula, or the Moors in The Hound of the Baskervilles, or even the quiet study in Poe's The Raven. It's a solitary kind of horror, evocative of the gothic style of storytelling. For this reading, I want to focus more on the narrative elements rather than delving too much into symbolism and metaphor. Obviously, one could discuss themes of innocence, loss of innocence, good versus evil, etc. But I'm much more interested in the storytelling aspects of this piece, especially in the overall context of this podcast. Overall, having read this poem repeatedly over the course of producing this episode, I find that there is always something more to be drawn from the story, whether symbolic, subtle hints at Geraldine's purpose, or simply a greater appreciation for the structure and flow of the narrative itself. I'll be delving into this more in the next episode, when I release the second and final part of this narrative poem. Until next time. Thank you for listening to episode 8 of Tales Under a Broken Sky. I hope you enjoyed this week's production as much as I enjoyed reading and recording it. If you did enjoy it, please consider subscribing to the podcast on your platform of choice and leaving a rating and/or review. Thank you again for your time. Stay tuned to hear a brief trailer for part 2 of Christabel. Tales Under a Broken Sky, Episode 9, Christabel, by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Part 2. Each matin bell, the Baron saith, knells us back to a world of death. These words Sir Leoline first said, when he rose and found his lady dead. These words Sir Leoline will say, many a morn to his dying day. And hence the custom and law began, that still at dawn the sacristan, who duly pulls the heavy bell, 45 beads must tell, between each stroke a warning knell, which not a soul can choose but hear, from Brathahead to Windermere. Set Bracy the bard, so let it knell, and let the drowsy Sarkistan still count as slowly as he can. There is no lack of such, I ween, as well fill up the space between, in Langdale Pike and Witch's Lair, and Dungeon Gill so foully rent, with ropes of rock and bells of air. 3 sinful sextons' ghosts are pent, who all give back, one after t'other, the debt note to their living brother, and off too by the knell offended, just as their 1, 2, 3 is ended. The devil mocks the doleful tale with a merry peal from Borrowdale. The air is still through mist and cloud, that merry peal comes ringing loud, and Geraldine shakes off her dread, and rises lightly from the bed, puts on her silken vestments white, and tricks her hair in lovely plight, and nothing doubting of her spell, awakens the Lady Christabel. Sleep you, sweet Lady Christabel, I trust that you have rested well. And Christabel awoke and spied the same who lay down by her side, or rather say, the same who she raised up beneath the old oak tree. Nay, fairer yet, and yet more fair, for she belike hath drunken deep of all the blessedness of sleep. And while she spake, her looks, her air, such gentle thankfulness declare, that, so it seemed, her girded vest grew tight beneath her heaving breasts. Sure, I have sinned, said Christabel, now heaven be praised if all be well. And in low faltering tones, yet sweet, did she the lofty lady greet, with such perplexity of mind, as dreams too lively leave behind. So quickly she rose, and quickly arrayed her maiden limbs, and having prayed that he who on the cross did groan might wash away her sins unknown, she forthwith led fair Geraldine to meet her sire, Sir Leoline.